Next question that I have for today, how much can you get in compensation for a slip and fall? It's a really important and great question, totally related to personal injury. I'm happy to dive into it, but before I go into it, make sure to click that subscribe button, follow along where I'm diving deep into different personal injury areas where I'm going to make sure that you understand how to not only protect your personal injury case, but to make sure that you don't set yourself behind the 8 ball if I hope you don't go through one of these scenarios, but if they do come up, then you at least will understand what to do. Nobody ever expects themselves to be a plaintiff in a personal injury case. It's the first thing that they always say to me. I've never been through this. I don't really know what's going on. I'm so hurt. I don't know what to do. But really, just make sure that you watch these videos and follow along where I can make sure that you understand how to handle these situations so that you're protected. So, click that subscribe button. And how much is my personal injury case worth specifically in a slip and fall? So, how is it calculated? It's a really interesting question. There is generally 2 parts to a lawsuit, and I've talked about this in my other videos. One, liability, who is at fault, and technically, damages, which is how much is the pain and suffering worth, are a completely separate part of the case. That's why there are other types of damages that you can get paid for, such as punitive damages, where let's say that the liability is so bad that it was deemed as almost reckless, then you can actually be awarded punitive damages to punish the defendant for their actions. So let me try to think of a scenario that would be good for you guys, and I am thinking about this on the spot, so just bear with me. So in terms of a slip and fall, how is it calculated? What's it worth? Generally, if you win on who is at fault, then you will get the entire verdict amount. So let's say that you took your case to trial in Pennsylvania. Now, different states have different rules in terms of how verdicts are calculated based on percentage of fault. But the way Pennsylvania works is if you are partially at fault, the verdict is reduced by that amount. So let's say that you tripped in a parking lot at Walmart. These things happen all the time. In fact, we have several cases like that. Let's say that there was a pothole that was about 3 feet wide, 3 feet deep. You step out of your car, you mess up your ankle, you didn't see it there, and you broke your ankle in 3 places, you need a surgery. All right, this is a serious case. It happens every day at every one of these locations. So you break your ankle, and let's say that you testify that as you were pulling in, you felt the bump under your car. All right, so there's that fact. You pull into the parking spot, your car sort of bumps over that hole, you didn't quite realize what it was, you get out of the car, you step, you break your left ankle. All right, so you might have known that that was there, but you weren't quite sure as to the extent of it. So let's say that we took that case to a jury trial in Philadelphia, and that jury trial awards you $300,000. But they say that you are 10% at fault. So in Pennsylvania, the way that that works is that your verdict is reduced by the amount you are at fault. So you would recover, in that scenario, 90% of $300,000. That'd be $270,000. If that doesn't make sense, I'm happy for you to chime in on the comments. I'm happy to talk to you guys about it. But basically in Pennsylvania, your verdict is reduced by the amount you're at fault. So that's a part of the way that it's calculated. How do they come up with that 300,000 number? It's also a great question. Now that one is more of a crapshoot. Let's say that we tried that exact same fact pattern up in a really rural county. And in these rural counties, you generally don't get the same kind of verdicts that you do in cities. So let's say that in Philadelphia, that case was worth $300,000 according to a jury. But maybe in Erie County, you are 30% at fault, and they valued it at $100,000. So in that case, you only recover $70,000. The way that it's calculated, if it goes all the way to a jury, is what is the percentage of fault multiplied by the verdict amount? And the way that that verdict amount is calculated is typically based on sort of what I like to call the birthday cake of damages. There's tons of ingredients to it. How did this affect your life? What are the activities you used to do? Did you require surgery? How long was your PT? How many times did you show up to the doctor? The jury takes all these facts in, they evaluate it, and they put a dollar figure on that case. That's if it goes all the way to a jury. If the case settles before that, so let's say that you're trying to resolve the case with the insurance company for Walmart in this situation. And they say, you know what, I think that this case is worth $100,000. How do they come up with that number? You know, the insurance companies, they've got a lot of data on all these jury verdicts. They've got a lot of data on all of the settlements they pay, down to a dollar figure. They've seen this fact pattern before. They've seen what their exposure is if they let it go to a jury trial. Say, for example, in Philadelphia County, they may say your case is worth $300. Would you accept a settlement? But then you go to a jury trial and say instead of $300, they award you $500. You know, that's the risk that you take by taking the case all the way to a jury, is that the jury will just make a decision, and whatever that decision is the final decision, you know, of course, but for an appeal. But a settlement is calculated a little differently. It sort of can feel like a lose-lose. Let's say that the plaintiff's attorney in that case asked for $600,000, and Walmart says, I'm only giving you $100. And then you meet in the middle about at $250. That might not feel exactly as good as $600, but it doesn't feel as bad as $100. So you meet sometimes in the middle on situations like that where they try to get your case resolved for a reasonable, fair number to avoid the risk of going to trial, because guess what? That jury trial could have awarded you zero just as likely as $1 million. So to avoid the risk of taking the case all the way to trial, especially if liability is a worry. And remember, liability is who's at fault. Now, let me change the facts up a little bit. Let's say that as you were pulling into that spot, you testify that you saw the hole, your wheels went over the hole, you open your door, you look down at the hole, and then you stepped on the hole anyway because you thought it'd be safe and it was deeper than you expected. Totally different fact pattern there. Totally different fact pattern there. You might lose that case at a jury trial. Now, the more notice that you have in a slip and fall or trip and fall situation, usually the worse it is in terms of how you will recover. The more you knew about that, you know, spilled drink in the alley, if you saw it on your way and you stepped on it anyway, is different than if you didn't see it at all and you stepped on it. Just like if there was bad lighting or good lighting. If there's bad lighting and you fall on black ice, it's different than if there is really big spotlights pointed at one spot and it's obvious that there's ice there. Even if it wasn't salted, if you can see it, your case is worth less because liability might fall more on you. So really, to calculate how this all works, it's a combination of liability and how hurt you were and what this injury did to affect your life. And then at the end of the day, it's what a jury thinks it's worth. I don't know what one person's life is worth, just like you don't know what one person's life is worth. I don't know what a broken ankle's worth, just like you don't know what a broken ankle's worth, because who the hell knows what a broken ankle is worth, because they're not worth money. It's a body part. But people can empathize with what you're going through. And if they say, you know, if I were to have been in work for this period of time, I would have made 50 grand. It's a pretty important thing to put in front of a jury. So how is it calculated? It's a combination of a ton of things. Maybe money you were making, how much surgery you had, whether it was injections, whether you just needed physical therapy, whether you broke something or not, whether you needed surgery or not, whether you needed invasive surgery or just closed surgery. Maybe the surgery wasn't that serious and you healed in 2 weeks. So it really does depend on sort of a bunch of things on how to calculate it. And I hope I kind of gave you a little bit of an overview. I know that it was a lot, but if you happen to find value in this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Follow along. We're going to talk about all of these different areas of the law extensively, a little deeper than I can go on TikTok. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.